I'm Laurie Elle from our site, Your Light, and I'm happy to be here. I'll be introducing Rebeca Eigen. She is one of our newest soulful practitioners. But before we start, I want to call in spirit, and I'm going to shuffle a card for us. Oh, this one just flew out. And this is one of my favorite cards in the deck. So I'm just going to ask for all of our benevolent guides and guardians and those who love us unconditionally in spirit that they be here with us now, and that they just surround us all with like just this beautiful, loving protection, and just bless this interview and infuse it with love, light, and healing, because that is what we are all about at our site, Your Light. So I just picked the 10 of water cards, and this is from my favorite deck, the Good Tarot card. I just love this deck, Colette Baron Reed. And if you're a tarot enthusiast, you'll know that the 10 of water is the 10 of cups. And the 10 of cups is all about happily ever after. So this is the energy from which this interview is being conducted. It's all about happily ever after. It's all about new beginnings and just fulfillment, right? Because it's kind of like when everything is moving the way you want it to be moving. So, and look at, right, there's Buddha, and he's got his flowers, and there's water, and there's just so many beautiful symbols on this card. So perfect card. All right, I'm going to share this. I want to share this on my own page so that I think it's in Souls Illuminate, but I mean, so let's take a look. It might be in there. And I'm going to post it on my page so that this is going to be great. How about that? That'll get everyone to watch it. All right. So like I said, I'm Laurie Elle from our site, Your Light. I see my BFF Liz is watching. Lisa, hi. Tonight, we're going to talk with Rebeca Eigen. She is our newest soulful practitioner, but she's been doing this business for quite some time. And I will say, Rebeca is available for you to work with at Spirit Day. I'm going to be reminding you about Spirit Day now, in the middle, and at the end, because it's so important. Spirit Day is happening this coming Saturday. It's what it is. It's an online healing and reading fair. So you can have 3 sessions either in the morning or in the afternoon, or if you're a diehard and you want to do both sessions, you can do 6 sessions. And it's from 10 to 12 and then 1 to 3. And you get to choose 3. Well, I ask that you choose 5 or 6 because I'm trying to schedule everyone. But you get to choose 3 practitioners that you'd like to work with. And you'll have 3 20-minute sessions. And then in the middle of the day from 12 to 1, we're going to have a group healing and a mystical moment event for everybody. So that's going to be like a free session that anyone who signs up for either the morning session or the end session can join. And I'll make sure that I put Spirit Day in the comments, but it's super simple. You can go to our site, yourlight.com, and we have right on the main page, I have a beautiful picture right on the little scroll bar, and you can just click on it and sign up. It's only $99, and that's for 3 sessions, and you get to experience 3 different kinds, whether you want healing or reading. And everyone but one of the practitioners can't make it, but everyone else is going to be there. So it's really going to be a great event. So hold on, I'm typing it in the chat right now. So if you haven't gotten your spot and by the end of this this interview that you want to work with Rebeca, I highly recommend that after this, you don't delay and you go and you book your spot for Spirit Day. And okay, so here we go. So Rebeca Eigen, thank you so much for being here. It feels like this was about 3 years in the works, but you're finally here and I'm finally here with you, and I'm so happy to have you.
Well, thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. So Rebeca lives in Houston, And we were just talking about how we met. And then we just both realized, like, how did we meet? So I'm just saying spirit brought us together. And actually, I'll tell you how we met. I was so intrigued and interested in shadow work. That was back when I started reading like Debbie Ford, and I read The Dark Side of the Light Chasers. And that was like the first real awakening moment to my shadow. You know, I'd heard shadow before, but I didn't really understand shadow. And so anyway, I started reading that. And of course, Spirit delivered you to me and put you in my purview so that I would have a place to grow, because I feel like I'm being redirected to do my shadow work. So finally, we aligned, our stars aligned. Rebecca is a seventh house astrologer. I mean, she's an amazing astrologer, but her focus is the seventh house, and she can tell you all about that. And she's an avid um, Jungian um, psychology. She's an enthusiast, and she's a student, and she's a teacher of shadow work, and she can tell you all about that too. So again, I'm so happy to have you. This is exciting. So why don't we start by telling people about what exactly is seventh house astrology? Because everyone knows about astrology pretty much that's watching, but tell them what seventh house astrology is all about, because I only know, you know, every month I learn something more about astrology, and my eyes open. It's such an amazing topic. And but this is a really special part of it, and I'm excited for you to explain it.
Okay. Well, the seventh house in our charts is 180 degrees opposite of our first house, which is our persona or mask. In Jungian psychology, that's what we would call that. In astrology, we call that the rising sign. So the first sign in our chart, it's a 360-degree circle, and that is where what was rising in the east when we were born, the moment of birth. So 180 degrees opposite is our marriage house. So we fall in love with a person who is carrying our energy. We wouldn't even be drawn to that person if they weren't. And so whatever's in our seventh house, whatever planets are there, and planets is just a description of archetypes. Archetypes, do you want me to explain that?
Sure. Go ahead.
People who don't. So archetypes is what Carl Jung came up with, which comes from the word arca, which is ancient, and imprints, types, which is imprints. So the archetypes are the ancient imprints in our unconscious, and we are all connected with what he called the collective unconscious. So these archetypes are in every one of us. We all have all of them. And whatever planets are in our seventh house, we have to learn how to access that energy and be that, and not just project it onto a partner. Initially, that's how it's going to happen. We are going to actually.
Oh, I'm sorry. I want you to tell them what projection means, because most of us do it.
Okay.
I don't know that we all know what that is.
Well, projection is seeing something that's inside of us, outside of us, like on a mirror, which is why the planet Venus looks like a mirror. It's like seeing something on a projection or a screen that is in your unconscious. It's not conscious. If it was conscious, then it wouldn't be a projection. A projection means that you don't know about it. And what most people don't realize is that we're not the one projecting. It's the unconscious that projects itself out because it wants to be known. So this is the work that I do with couples or with individuals, because the projection can be onto your boss. It can be onto a sibling. So shadow work and seventh house is not just limited to relationships with significant others, but that's where it is so valuable. When you consider all the divorces that we have, globally, of people getting married and then being disillusioned and leaving that partner when they see their shadow in the other person.
Can you give us like a commonplace example of that? Like this usually happens, and then this is what ends up happening. Like,
Well, at first, everything is ideal, right? We have high idealized images of the other person, and they are perfect for us. And we have, we love the same things, and we have so much in common. And we're very idealistic about that person. But once we marry that person and we're there day in and day out, we start to see more of who they actually are, not who we wanted them to be, not who we projected onto them, which is mainly unconscious. So an example of that would be like from my own life, my ex-husband was very grounded and very practical and very responsible. And he gave me a feeling of safety and security. And so I was very drawn to him. And then after a couple of years of being married to him, he was an extreme. So now he became a stick in the mud, somebody who was unwilling to risk, somebody who was too practical. And he became one extreme and I became the other. And this is what often happens. Extremes start happening in relationships, polarization. I'll be this part of us if you'll be that part of us. That's what happens.
mm-hmm.
And it happens over and over. So even if you leave that person and then you marry somebody again, it will actually repeat, or you'll do the opposite side so that you can see yourself. So relationships are about healing and wholeness. They're about bringing unconscious contents to consciousness, to awareness. And it's no accident. It's no accident who we fall in love with.
Right. So some of the things that I think like bring that, when I was reading your book, and we can tell them a little bit about your book in a few minutes, I read, all right, I'll say this 3 things and then you can talk about them. The first part that I'm fascinated by is that we literally live out our parents' relationship in order to feel whole or to grow up, right? I'll let you explain that. That was fascinating. So if anybody who's watching can attest, and some of this stuff sounds like we're talking to you, give me a hand raise or something, because maybe Rebecca can answer some specific questions after. But so one is about our parents. And basically we marry someone and we recreate our parents' relationship, even though we don't think we're doing that. My parents are wonderful. I love you, Mom. I love you, Dad. And then the other thing, when we fall like madly in love with someone, that we they call it my soulmate, or that instant attraction. Like, I'm curious if you can talk about that a little bit, because I'm sure we all have experienced that. And then the other one is instantly, what's the word, when you're not attracted to someone, when you despise them, repulsed by someone. So I'm curious if you can address those 4 things, because I think most people will be able to relate to those things.
We can actually be attracted and repulsed by the same person. Where at first we were very attracted, then all of a sudden when the projections fall off, then we're repulsed. And now they can do nothing right.
Before you answer those questions, just keep in mind, I did get a question from Lily, and she said, what happens when your 7th house is empty? And you can either address that now or later, but that's interesting.
Well, I'll address it now so we don't forget. So when your 7th house is empty, it doesn't mean it's empty. It means there's not a huge emphasis for you in this lifetime. Where the planets are in our chart shows where our heavy emphasis is, but the sign on that cusp has a ruler. And the ruler of that planet, the ruler of that sign is a planet, and that will describe your 7th house. And the other thing that will describe your relationships will be your Venus and any oppositions that are in your chart, 180-degree aspects, because anything that's 180 degrees in the chart is going to show you things about you that are outside that you have to come into a balance with. But to go back to our parents, because it's really significant, I married my mother and my father. So it wasn't one or the other, it was both of them. And of all the consultations that I do, people it'll blow their minds when they really come to that awareness. Oh my God, I married my father. We do, because we're trying to reenact the relationship so that we can heal it. Our emphasis is that we're heading towards healing and wholeness. We can't get there without going into our history and looking at our challenging relationships and why they repeat, because they're going to repeat. Does that help?
Oh yeah, that's great. So, and then the other question was about why sometimes we fall madly in love. We might not even know the person hardly, but we feel like,
Yeah,
or we have this short romance and we end up marrying them, or or something, because we just feel like we're destined for one another. And then, then all this other stuff comes up. So I'm really, really interested.
all relationships begin with projection, or what Jungians would call transference.
Okay.
And projection, I've explained, we're projecting an aspect of our unconscious, of our shadow, onto that person, and we want to know it. So we're fascinated by that person. It's like an intoxication. Jung says if you're fascinated by anyone, that's an aspect of yourself that
Mhm.
you haven't brought into awareness yet. And the same thing with transference. Transference is we've transferred our history onto that person. We do this unconsciously. We don't know we're doing it.
Like when we blame people for things, like I feel like whenever I'm blaming someone for making me feel a certain way, which I really try never to do now because I understand it's just a projection, that wouldn't even be possible if it wasn't in me, right?
Exactly. You wouldn't even see it.
Right.
And every time we fall in love, we think it's gonna be different this time.
Right.
This person is different. We don't see the similarities until we have finally, married them, signed the dotted line, and then we realize, oh my God, I've done it again.
Right.
What is this about? That's how it starts to come to awareness, is when you realize this has happened to me before. So then you have to go back into your memory banks. You have to ask yourself, what does this mean?
Yeah.
Where have I seen this behavior before? And which one of my parents am I rejecting? Because we'll reject that person because the part of our parents that we don't identify with, we decide we don't like that parent. We don't want to be anything like that parent, but we are exactly like that parent in the unconscious.
Right.
So one of the greatest things about doing this work is the forgiveness that takes place. We can forgive our parents. And when we look at our birth chart and see that this is who we are, this is who we came to be, and nobody knows their whole self. Nobody. It's
So
a gradual unfoldment of consciousness, of becoming conscious.
yeah, so that's what's really interesting to me. So basically you use someone's birth chart, which is the day, the time, and the place that they were born. So then you get a clear vision of what the planetary alignments and the stars were at the time, the moment of their birth. And I understand that a natal chart is compared to like the blueprint of your soul's blueprint. It basically shows you, here's all the possibilities that are possible in this lifetime, right? And you can be at the low extreme of that possibility or the high extreme. Like, I guess that's where the free will comes in, right? That you have the potentiality for so much, but it's a matter of what you make of it, right?
Exactly. And when you're young and you start learning this information, when I started learning about all this in the 90s. And
Mhm.
I thought to myself, like most of us do, that, okay, now I know this. Well, wrong. It still had to repeat. And Jung said it happens in a spiral. You're constantly having these things come back around, and it gets more and more and more intense until you finally see it. So it's hard. It's not something anybody does overnight.
Right.
It's gonna be an ongoing process. And these are processes
And
where
you're referring to
unconsciously,
So let's say I'm just going to do my hypothetical thing. So let's say I'm in a long-term relationship and at an uncomfortable part in my life, or it could be a short-term relationship. And I really loved this person when I married them, but now there's all these things that are between me and this person. So what is the hope? What hope can I have? Like what what can this type of service, doing seventh house and shadow work, how can that help me either heal my relationship or heal myself, so that if I do decide to stay, it can be happy and whole, or if I do decide to leave, it can be without regret and clarity, so how does that work?
Well, how it works is that you have to make a commitment. You have to make a commitment to yourself to look at some things about yourself that you don't know about. You have to be willing to be open to the fact that your partner is representing something to you that you're unconscious of, and then have a dialogue, an honest dialogue with that person. I get people to talk to each other. When I'm doing a couple, I will have one person come first and tell me the story. And then I will have the other person come and tell me their story. And then I put them together and show them on paper. This is an aspect of you. This is an aspect of her, and how you have very similar energy, but you're splitting it up. You're basically splitting it up. You'll be this part if you'll be this part, is what happens. But it's an unconscious collusion that it began with our parents. If most of us can recognize that our parents were opposites.
Oh yeah.
One was one extreme, one was the other extreme, and that we sided with one or the other, right? Well, that siding that took place is the same exact thing that's going on in our current relationships. We're going to side with only one aspect of our being, and the other we will shove into the unconscious. And the unconscious, Jung says 90% of our being is unconscious. That's a lot. Think about that.
So that's a little, like, I guess, disheartening to some extent when you're on the path, right? You're on this journey of self-actualization. You're learning about your life. You're trying to grow spiritually. And then you keep bumping into setback after setback. But I suppose if we turn it around and
If
we
you
see it
turn,
as
yeah, if you
opportunity,
turn
yeah,
it around, you get an aha.
right.
The enlightening moments are when you get an aha and you really own that.
Mm,
Now you have an opportunity to be that part of you and bring that consciously into the relationship and talk about it. The seventh house is an air house. Air rules thinking and communication, right?
mhm,
So talking to our partner and becoming each other's best friend is the goal. That's my goal
mhm,
for the new age, for the Aquarian age. Aquarius represents objectivity,
right.
detachment, and becoming that our partner's best friend instead of being enemies.
Right. Yeah, because now, there's so many people just give up on each other because sometimes it's easier, but having gone through a divorce myself, it really isn't easier because
Yeah,
especially if you have children, yes, you get to start over again, hopefully in a new relationship, but if you don't take care of what's on your side of the street, I know that I was extremely unconscious in my youth. I really lived I had this idealistic vision of what I thought, um, marriage was supposed to look like and what other human beings were supposed to do for me. And, I'm not sure I've ever actually met anyone that's had that kind of relationship or anyone has ever done what I thought was supposed to be done for me. But somewhere in my unconscious, that was how it was supposed to be. And, wow, was I half of the equation in that very young marriage. But, once you have kids, you're always tied to that person. And, as I've looked at my shadow, I've had a million aha moments of like, oh, like, oh, that was me, and to this day, anytime someone bothers me or I'm fascinated by someone or something, the good part is I'm like, oh, that's a part of me, right? But when I don't like something, I'm like, oh, darn it, that's a part of me. But sometimes it's still hard to see. So,
That's right. Sometimes it's hard to see because we aren't we have ideals, you know, we have a highly idealized self-image of who we think we are, you know, all of us do. And we may even know some of our negative qualities. Well, that's not shadow. Shadow is not our negative qualities, you know, like I'm rude sometimes, but I know about that. Well, that's not shadow. Shadow is something we know nothing about. And that's why we get a huge charge. It pushes all of our buttons when somebody's carrying a part of our shadow. So you're going to know by the effect, you know, there's going to be too high or too low. You're going to fall madly in love or you can't stand this person. So it's an effect, it's an emotional effect. Shadow is going to be, you're going to have awareness of your shadow through the emotion involved.
yeah, that's very interesting. So if we have someone that we can't stand, that the thought of them, like our hair sticks up on our arm, like that's a good name to write down tonight. And then if there's someone that we're like infatuated with, whether it be, you know, a person that's a celebrity or a person that's our neighbor or like someone, a woman in our, like our group, our book club that we just can't like stop wishing we were more like, or, you know, if it's a man, if you're a woman and it's a man, or if whatever, if it's just someone that you're fascinated by, then yeah, that's a sign like, okay, there's something in there for you to learn.
And the interesting thing is that you don't really know that person.
That's the
So,
weird part,
so
right?
that is really, that's a really interesting thing when somebody sees, you know, we've all experienced that we're not everybody's cup of tea. You know, some people don't like us.
Right.
And that's also shadow projection. They can be projecting their shadow onto you.
Right.
And you're, you know, you wonder, why are they short with me? Why are they avoiding me? Why are they treating me like that? You know, what did I do? Well, you might have said one thing that repulsed them. And now they have a blinder on and all they see is that. And I guarantee you, if you have a huge charge about anything, it's about yourself. Now, the hard part is, are you willing to see that? Are you
That,
willing
that
to
can
do
go
the
for
work?
society too, right? That can go
It
for,
takes a lot of honesty and self-integrity to do this kind of work. And it is exceedingly difficult because we have to see things that we'd rather not see. But I can tell you this, after years of doing this, there's a gift involved.
mm,
The gift is that finally you know that part of you and you can choose to use that energy in a different way.
and
So
so
it gives you more choices.
and that's what I was going to ask. Well, three questions. The first question is, I'm assuming that this shadow projection can also, it also applies to like what's happening in the world.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
like if you're charged, if you're like so charged by something that's happening, that's some shadow projection happening there, right?
Shadow work, a lot of it has to do with behaviors,
Mm-hmm.
you know, behaviors of different people and characteristics and qualities.
Sure.
So, you know, yes, we have a huge polarization in the world, especially in the United States, with our political. But my focus has been relationships. And the reason I focus on relationships is if we can do it with our brother and sister, if we can do it with our partner, our children, even if we can handle it in our own personal life, then we're contributing to the evolution of the whole. We actually each have a very important part in this, in the soul of the evolution of the planet. And that sounds grandiose, I'm sure, but it isn't, because each one of us contributes to what he called the collective unconscious. And as we're willing to become more conscious of the dark and the light, think about the yin yang symbol. I mean, there's dark and light. And when I say dark, that's just what's hidden. It's hidden from your awareness. It doesn't mean it's evil. It means that you don't know about it. And it can be infantile. It can come out in a infantile way and you'll say, why did I act like that? I'm not like that. But you are like that. You just don't know it.
Right.
So the shadow can embarrass us, and all of us have had these experiences. We've all had experiences where we've walked away going, who in me said that? Why did that come out?
Exactly.
Well, it was your shadow.
Yeah.
Your shadow begging for your own awareness.
Like, God, I wish I didn't say that, because the part you can control wished you just zipped a lip. So, okay. So you have a book. Tell us a little bit about your book. I know you have a new, you have more being printed, and I have this book, and I read it. I still go through it because there's so much to it. There's so much to learn, because it's not just about astrology in the seventh house. It's also about the psychology around it. So maybe tell everyone a little bit about your book, and
Okay.
what the purpose of
So,
it is.
so this is the book. It's called The Shadow Dance. You actually need to see the person that you're shadow dancing with. And I thought it was interesting when I designed this in 1995 that I didn't even know that much about the shadow at that point. Well, guess where the unconscious put the shadows? Not in the back, in the front.
Mm.
Isn't that cool? And so the first chapter is all the different ways to recognize your shadow. And there's lots of different ways to do that. And it's 250 pages total. But the first part is some basics of Jungian psychology, some terminology, what they mean, why they are formed, why is our persona formed? Why is our mask there to begin with? The second part of the book is our parents and our partners in our seventh house, because we marry our parents. And I go into some Jungian terminology for that, and some actual descriptions of real life examples. Because for me, if you tell a story, then the other person can relate to that story. So I have questions and answers at the end of each those first two chapters that you write in you write in it. It has places for you to ask yourself questions. You have to do the work. And then there's places to write notes to yourself when you're reading it. Because if you'll work with your unconscious will work with you. When you really admit that you have an unconscious, that's the first step, is to recognize there's some things about us we don't know.
Yeah.
They're hidden. And then the third part is where I go into each planet and how do we do this planet or archetype when it's projected, and how can we do it together? How can I partner up with another person and do that together? So I see astrology as not being static. It's dynamic. It is constantly evolving us. We are growing into becoming a whole person. And we need a partner to do that. We need at least a business partner or a best friend or some person in our life who can show us the parts of us we don't know about.
Mm.
And the parts of us that are repulsive too. So get to know that person that you don't like. You might find out, like I did, you have to go back into your memory banks and remember, well, who did I not like? When I first started doing this work, I remembered a girl when I was 25 and I couldn't stand her. So I avoided her. I mean, I would walk around the room to get away from her, and I couldn't stand her. Well, as life would have it, they put our drafting tables right next to each other because I'm a graphic designer. And I had to get to know her. At first, I was like super short with her, but she was just this bubbly, friendly Aquarian. And I have Aquarius on the seventh house cusp. So repeatedly, I would bring these Aquarius people to me. It was amazing. My business partner was an Aquarius. My husband had the moon in Aquarius, exactly 9 degrees on my seventh house cusp. I left my husband for a man with 5 planets in Aquarius. So the universe was begging me, to see this part of me that I could not identify with. I could only identify with my Leo. So basically, that's the third part, is finding out what's on your seventh house cusp. How do you project that? How do you see that in other people? And how can you do it together?
Yeah, that's the part I think is most fascinating, is one. So I see this as like a two-part type of two parts, two ways that you can help people through our Site Your Light. I see it as one, being able to inform them about their, even if they've already had a natal chart reading, you can take their chart and you can be more specific about their seventh house, and you can point out the parts of them that would directly impact relationships. And of course, the second
Yes,
part
and the
would
way
be, oh, go ahead.
go ahead. No,
I
go
was just
ahead.
gonna say, and the second part would be once they do their own work, right? Which you would be able to guide them with, your book and other tools to get started in learning about shadow work. Then they may be more open to saying, oh, it's not all his fault, or it's not all her fault. And then maybe a dialogue can actually open up about their partner. And who knows, maybe their partner is just waiting for that communication so that there can be a two-way dialogue. Because I think a lot of women, if they're having a relationship trouble, their first notion is to hide it, like not talk about it and to keep it on the inside, because facing it is way too scary. If they're thinking like, oh my gosh, if I actually face this, I might have to leave. But this work says, oh my gosh, if I face this, I might get to stay and learn to really know this person differently, because maybe the parts of them that I don't like are really the parts of me I don't even know are in me, or I've rejected or haven't uncovered.
And what's truly amazing is that when you do see something, when you do see a part, the forgiveness is amazing. You feel it in your body, where you feel, wow, it's a gut reaction. It's a heart opening thing. You're all of a sudden, the person you couldn't stand, all that energy goes away.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And so after, doing this with several people, I think it's profound. And I think this is something that will help heal our planet. If we can start with our relationships and helping each other, then we can help that go out exponentially.
Yeah.
But it all starts with us. It's and what Jung said is it starts with the individual. The individual is the person that has to start the work.
Yeah, agreed. And I do really feel that. Yes, I heard two people
And
have
the
said it
reason I
sounds
the
very
reason
freeing, and that to me is when I started this work. It's been several years now that I've really kind of dove into it, and it is freeing. It's it takes a lot
liberating.
of courage. It takes a lot of courage to see what's in you that you haven't
Right.
wanted to see before, or weren't even aware. Because the truth is, sometimes I wish that I was just this oblivious person who didn't know anything, because I could blame everyone else for everything and I wouldn't have to take responsibility. It could just be my way or the highway. And now, and maybe you can speak to this really quickly, is the older we get, the more
Right.
open we might be to this kind of work, because we've been there, done that. And then when we start to notice, like, why does this keep happening to me? Why do I keep picking the same type of guy? Or why do I keep picking the same type of job? Or how many times do I have to experience this before I have on my here it says, how many times do I need to be shown the truth before I believe it? That's one of my and again, truth is subjective, but I have to remind myself, like, how many loops on the spiral, Laurie, do you have to make before you really look at something that either there's something wrong here, or there's something in you that you're not seeing?
Exactly. And the way I say it was very similar to the way you say it. And it's how many times does something have to happen to you before something occurs to you?
That's
It's that aha moment. It's that time of awareness
mm,
and sudden insight that we get from doing this kind of work. It's deep. Going into your own unconscious is deep work.
yeah.
It's very, very liberating. And I can tell you, I'm almost 69, that when I look back on my history and all my relationships, I know that I was gradually working towards this and getting to this place where an open heart and love for everyone was possible. But it wasn't possible until I could start seeing all these disparate parts that were out there. that all these fragments that were out there on other people that I needed to retrieve.
Yes.
I needed to retrieve for my own wholeness. And I'm not totally there yet. Don't hear me saying that, because this is something that we will do till we leave the planet. But the more and more and more you are willing to do that, it's a way of being. It's a way of being in the world. Now, like you said, you don't blame. You immediately go inside. It's inner work. You go
Or after I
inside
sulk
and
a little
you
bit.
do the inner work
I sulk a little bit,
of
and then I
what
do theater work.
does it mean, right? You ask yourself, what does this mean? Why did this happen now? In this time of my life, what does spirit want from me? And I think that's the other part of this, is that we really feel the connection to spirit because the synchronicities that occur are profound. And the fourth part of my book has some basic astrology information and positive and negative key signs for every keywords for every sign, because everyone has both positive and negative in their signs. So when you know that about yourself, you can go in here and look at the positive and negative keywords, and you will recognize your own. And then the fourth part is 4 actual word for word, no words changed consultations that I did with 4 people who got to see a specific shadow quality immediately. And that way I can demonstrate how, if you're willing to do this, if like you said, if you have enough courage to do this kind of inner work, it will lead to the gold. Yeah. That's why there's gold on the cover.
I love that.
And I believe our gold, the alchemists called our gold, the prima materia. The prima materia was the shadow. It wasn't about focusing on the light. It was about bringing what's dark into consciousness and bringing it into the light.
That's beautiful. So let's talk a little bit about 1, Spirit Day, and 2, like how you're going to show up with Our Site Your Light, the different services that you're offering. And
okay.
And I want to just explain to everyone, Rebeca is now up on our site. And if you go to her page, which I will, I put at the top of the Facebook posting, but I'll put it in the comments. There's a little image of a freebie that you can download. I just watched it today. It's this great video, and it's a great video and a PDF that you can download for free. And it's really like a little starter. It's an overview of the shadow and why everyone should start working with it today. So I watched that today, and it was a great video. So I put it up on the site because I wanted to have it for everyone to download. So you can just go to oursiteyourlight.com, click on practitioners, find Rebeca, and when you go to her page, you'll see the freebie there. But tell us a little bit. I know it's a short consultation for Spirit Day, but just a little bit of insight, like what would they sign up for Spirit Day, which is this Saturday, whoop, whoop, alert. If they sign up and they choose to work with Rebeca, what can they expect from you? Like, what are they going to get in that 20?
Well, they're going to get their chart. They'll get their chart, and they will get some instruction as to the meaning of the planet and sign that's on their 7th house. And how that can be projected, and how, I can give some short examples of how that can be projected and how they can do it together. So it starts the process. So it starts them thinking that now, I have a tool to work with. If they want to go deeper and discuss their actual relationships, because some people will say, I don't see that. I'm not like that. I don't see that about me. Well, I can help you go deeper in a longer consultation. And I'm not just going to do 7th house consultations. I am also putting on your website that I'm doing consultations on the nodes of the moon. And the nodes of the moon are our karmic intentions for our soul in this life. It's based on our past life experiences and what's ingrained in our conscious attitude that needs to be balanced by the opposite sign. So when we really learn about that, as well. That also contributes to our growth. And then Saturn, which is where we all feel inferior. I mean, basically, we all have a Saturn somewhere. And I see Saturn now as a place of mastery, because when you are aware of your Saturn, it's a place you're going to work hard at. And with time, that becomes a strength instead of a place of victimhood. You know, it appears like it's happening to us, you know, limitations, frustrations, disappointments. And we think it's happening to us, but it's actually being evoked through compensation, what Carl Jung would say, compensation. Everything in the unconscious is going to be mirrored out. It's like an infinity symbol. And what's inside is outside. The alchemist had a statement, as above, so below, as within, so without. That was an alchemical dictum, which eventually, as you start to see these things, then you realize, I have to work at that. Wherever our Saturn is where we have to work at it. So everything is work, but the work is worth it. I mean, it is so worth it. That's all I can say. Unless you start doing it and you see the results that happen, you don't you know, you might think, oh, that's too hard, I don't want to do it. And that's your choice. That's your choice. We have free will. But if we want to be a conscious person on this planet and grow, then we are going to do this, because otherwise it gets pretty painful. And if it has no outlet, the unconscious is trying to get to you. Our unconscious is trying to help us see these things. We aren't victims. The age of Pisces is over. We're heading into the age of Aquarius, which is about liberation. So that's my goal with being on your site, is to have access to more people to do the work and to contribute to what I call the new age goal for relationships, which is about being each other's best friend.
Relationship goals. That's what my teenagers would say. Relationship goals. Yeah, that's perfect. That's a perfect way to sum it all up. So again, oursiteyourlight.com, you can click on practitioners and you'll see Rebeca. She has, if you haven't noticed, she's a smart cookie, and she has such a wealth of knowledge that I don't think we'll ever be short on content that we can share from Rebeca, because she has so many things, so many nuggets, and so many big things to share. So I think, if anything, we're going to have to do a good job of breaking them down so that people can digest them in small chunks, right? Because I mean, I think this is like an ongoing process, but I highly recommend, you know, if you can sign up for Spirit Day, get a glimpse of what it might be like to work with Rebeca. And once you get to actually sit with her and she starts explaining your chart to you in the relationship context, you'll be like, oh yeah, I definitely need more of that. And yeah, so we're just so happy to have you, Rebeca. Thank you so much for being part of our family. And just, so my North node is Aquarius, and my ascendant, right? So, and my South node is Leo. So we have a lot in common. We're both leaving Leo and heading toward Aquarius ourselves. So we were very attracted to each other, but not in a repulsion type of way.
and they were conjunct. So it was, to me, it was fate.
There we go.
That
We're fated right there. That we'd be working. And I have so much to learn from this woman. So that will be something that will, because I'm going to want to learn, I'm going to make sure that Rebeca in somehow, way or form teaches us some things too. So that will be good. So anyway, thank you so much. Does anyone have any questions before I see Lily is digging this so much? Liz is like, oh, way cool. And I think your book cover reminded her of Andy Gibb. Not that she's dating herself, Liz. Laura said she's very interested in doing shadow work. And Julie was here. She's big into astrology, but she had to go. But I know that a lot of people are going to have a lot of interest in this work. So if anybody has any questions, even if we hang up, I'm dating myself. If we end the Zoom Facebook Live and you have questions, just post them in the comments And I'll make sure that Rebecca responds to you. And otherwise, hurry up and sign up for Spirit Day. It's this Saturday, oursiteyourlight.com, and you can just look on the banner Spirit Day, or I put the link at the top. Anything else, Rebecca, in closing? Or
No, I just want to say thank you.
yeah, well, thank you. I'm so
Thank you.
grateful for you. All right, so everyone, we love you. Thank you. And don't forget the card that we picked for today was, oh, it's gone now, but it was the 10 of Cups, which is all about many blessings, happy family. And to me, my interpretation is when you do shadow work, if you're looking for happily ever after, it's ditch the projections, ditch the expectations, and get to the truth. And when you get to the truth, then you can truly love, admire, and care about your partner and not have all of the expectations that we, oh, I have one question. How do I find the cusp in my empty 7th house?
The chart is a circle, and actually you can go to Our Site Your Light and look at a chart and see the first, second, third, all the way to every house. I will give you something to put on
Okay.
on the website to show
Okay, sure.
the 7th house. I believe under the I think that Lynn did a great job.
Oh, on Hillary's little astrology.
No, on my services fees.
Oh, yeah,
She
yeah.
did a great job. She did the chart and put the 7th house.
Oh, good.
That line right there is the 7th house, and that whatever sign is there. But you need your time, place, and date of birth to do
I
it.
think Lily has her chart. My question is, if I'm looking at my 7th house, is it on the bottom line or the top line? That's
It's
the cusp.
directly straight across.
Oh, directly.
Exactly 180 degrees.
Whatever's in the middle.
Right. The
That's what
middle of the chart. In fact, it's a cross.
Okay.
It's a cross. Mother and father, self and other.
Ooh, interesting. That's a good way to close that, right? Lily, I'm sure if we need to have Rebecca look at your cusp, absolutely, I'm sure we'll figure that out. All right, thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful night. Rebecca, thank you so much, and we'll definitely be talking soon. So thank you.
Okay.
Have a great night, everyone.